Hello everyone, I am Leela Prabhugankar and I am from the Bodhi Academy. So today we'll start from Indian economy on the eve of independence. So this is the first part of economics. So here we'll be learning about colonial rule in India and its policies. So So here basically we have focused on the economic impact of the British rule. So here we'll be studying about various policies followed by the British and their impact on the various sectors, that is agriculture, industry, trade and infrastructure. Okay. Then so we'll move to colonial rule in India and its policies. The advent of colonial rule of the British over India can be traced back to the establishment of the East India Company. So, after the Battle of Plassey in the year 1757, with this slowly and gradually, the British spread their dominance all over the India. Okay, so here British rule has left a deep impact on the Indian economy. A point worth noting is that the colonial rule in India coincided with the process of industrialization in Britain. So, in this regard, the sole aim of the colonial government was to reduce India to a mere supplier of a raw material for their own thriving industrial base. The policies were concerned mainly with the fortification and advancement of their home country. Now, the following diagram, this depicts the major policies that were adopted by the colonial government. So which are the policies of colonial rule? First one is the monopoly control over trade. Then transforming agriculture as supplier of raw material. Then systematic deindustrialization. Then commercialization of agriculture. Land settlement system or zamindari system. Okay, land settlement system or zamindari system. So these were the policies of the colonial rule, wherein they were spreading the monopoly, then they were transforming the agriculture as a supplier of raw material, then zamindari system were being followed. The first point is, here we'll have a brief discussion about some major policies which are followed by the colonial government and their impact. So the first thing is transforming agriculture sector as a mere supplier of a raw material. The British here, they forced the production of only those agricultural items that could serve as a raw material for the products of British industries. For example, now whatever the British industries want, only that materials Indian sector is going to supply for them. For example, they enforce the production of jute and indigo instead of food grains. So the major thing what Indian people wanted was the food grain, because that time the major focus was on food. But here what Britishers focused is on jute and indigo plantation. Okay, because here the revenue what they were getting is higher, so that's why most of the production they focused on jute and indigo. Such a policy adversely affected the Indian agriculture sector. So Indians who were earlier were self-sustained in the production of food grains now suffered on account of their shortage. So there were a shortage of food grains, we can see over here, because there was more focus on jute and indigo production. Okay. Shortage of food grains. Shortage of food grains. Why there was a shortage of food grains? Because there were major focus on plantation of jute and indigo. So there were major focus on plantation of jute and indigo. Okay. Then now, in addition to the agriculture sector, this policy, okay, this policy also affected the manufacturing sector. Now, in return of the exports of raw material, now Britain supplied India with its own machine-made finished products. So this fine British product provided a stiff competition to the Indian handloom and traditional product in terms of quality. So basically what happened is there was a competition between our product only, Indian product only, because what they used to do is they used to sell they used to export the raw material, and they used to sell their own machine made finish products. So here there is a competition between the Indian domestic product and the British finished product, we can say over here. So as a result, the handloom and traditional product lost out to the machine made British product, because when now this is handloom and traditional product, no, which take a lot of time to manufacture. But with regards to machine made products, what happened with regards to this is it takes lesser time to finish a particular good, because machine take a very here, if we take the example, machine takes a less time as compared to machine takes a less time as compared to the handmade products. Made products. Then, thus, this policy left the small manufacturing units and the handicraft sector in a ruined state. Then, the second one is land settlement system. So, in the agriculture sector, the system of land settlement in the form of zamindari system was introduced. This system was introduced by Lord Cornwallis in Bengal in 1793. So, this point is very important over here, as who introduced the zamindari system. So it was introduced by Lord Cornwallis in Bengal in the year 1793. So under this system, the zamindars, or we can say them as the landlords, were under the obligation to pay a fixed sum of revenue to the British. Okay, so the zamindars, what they used to pay is the fixed revenue, the fixed sum of revenue, some sort of taxes, we can say. They used to pay the taxes, the revenue, to the British government. So, however, the zamindars fulfilled their obligation to pay the rent to the British government by collecting a huge rent from the peasants. Now, zamindars, in order to fulfill their demand, the Britishers' demand, what they used to do is they used to collect a huge rent from the farmers, from the poor peoples. Okay. Now, they collected the profit, zamindars collected the profits and rent from the peasants or the cultivators who cultivated on their farms. So whoever the laborers who were working on their farms, they only have to pay a huge amount of rent and the profits to the zamindars. Okay, so this in turn impacted our farmers who used to cultivate our land, and this has a great impact on them. So and in turn paid the revenue collected to the British government. So the zamindars could raise the amount of revenue at any point of time at their will. So this implied that the cultivators and the peasants were highly exploited at the hands of zamindars. So the exploitation were major during colonial time. So exploitation is the first point. Exploitation of peasants and the cultivators. Peasants, you can say them as farmers, and the cultivators. Okay. Then, however, neither the zamindars nor the British government did anything to improve the condition of agriculture. So here, even though the zamindars were paying a lot of revenue to the British, Britishers didn't even try to pay or to improve the condition of agricultures or to improve the condition of the farmers or the cultivators. They did nothing. So the agriculture sector was deprived by any investment. So there was no investment with regards to the technology of upgradation. Only they used to use the outdated technology. Thus, this system of zamindari led to the deterioration of economic condition of the poor farmers and hence of the mass of Indian population. Then, the next part is commercialization of agriculture. Beside the zamindari system, the British introduced the system of commercialization in agriculture. Indian farmers were forced to produce cash crops such as, now this point is very important, which are the different cash crops: cotton, indigo, jute. Now these are called as cash crop because these crops used to give a higher revenue to the Britishers. So cotton, indigo, jute is the example of cash crop. Okay. These cash crops serve as a raw material to the Britain's industrial base. However, this commercialization did not benefit the Indian farmers, rather led to their deterioration. Now, the Indian population, they starved due to the shortage of food grain because Britishers, they told the cultivators to put more focus on cotton, indigo and jute. Okay, put more focus on the cash crop. The next part is systematic deindustrialization. Similar to the agriculture sector, in the industrial sector as well, the British government followed such policies that suited their own interests. The colonial government followed the policy of systematic deindustrialization, and under this policy, it allowed free export of Indian raw material to Britain and free import of British products to India. So, on the other hand, exports of Indian handicrafts were subject to heavy tariffs. So, Indian Indian made products were subject to heavy taxes over here, and this policy had the following three important implications. The first is free export of Indian raw material served the expanding industrial base of Britain. Then free import of British product to India mean that Indian domestic product faced competition from British machine made products and thereby suffered due to fall in demand. So these were having a negative impact on the Indian products. Then imposition of heavy tariff on the export of Indian handicraft made. So this made them costlier in the international market and the demand fell drastically. So this led to a gradual collapse of the Indian handicraft and the handloom industry. Then the next point is monopoly control over trade. Now, in the foreign trade sector, Britain maintained a monopoly control over India's export and import. So, monopoly is the one who is controlling the full organization single-handedly. Okay. So, more than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain. And to further broaden the exploitative control, the British modified the trade policies in accordance to the interests of their home country. Now, in addition to the direction of foreign trade, they also affected the composition of trade from India. Now, they enforce export of raw material to British industry at a cheap rate and in turn flooded the Indian market with imports of finished machine-made product. So here what they did, this is the important part. So they enforce the export of raw material over here, and they they in turn flooded the Indian market with the with the imported product. Okay, and in either way, it was the British industries that benefited at the cost of domestic producers. So the revenue generated from the export was used by the colonial government to meet its own war and administrative expenditure. Thus, it can be said that the British rule and the policies followed by the colonial government, it led to disintegration and gradual collapse of the Indian economy. So, in other words, it can be said that the colonial rule left the Indian economy in the backward state, because they used to do is they used to focus more on the cash crop, and the Indian made products only they used to sell, they used to import it again to the India only, and then there was a stiff competition between the Indian domestic workers and the British made finished product. And then the next part is major features of Indian economy at the time of independence. So which are the features of Indian economy? Different features of Indian economy. So here these are the some of the features. First one is backwardness of Indian agriculture. Then next is infant industrial sector, regressed state of foreign trade, sound infrastructure, unbalanced occupation structure, poor demographic profile, poverty and inequality. Okay. So the first one is backwardness of Indian agriculture. The Indian economy at the time of independence was mainly an agrarian economy. Agrarian economy in the sense they used to put more focus on the agriculture. So most of the Indian population were focused on the agriculture activity. However, despite employing such a large section of population, agriculture sector suffered from a low productivity. Even while the area under cultivation was large, the level of output remained low. The production was sufficient only for the self-consumption of the farmer, and hardly anything was left to be sold in the market. So the pressure on farmer was too much. The low level of production can be sensed from the reports of Economic Survey of 2008 and 2009. According to the survey, the production of rice in 1947 was 20 times lower than its level in 2008. So, the productivity of wheat was 4 times lower in 1947 than its level in 2008. The agriculture sector was deprived of any of the modern techniques, and all they used to use the all the outdated technology for agriculture purpose. The use of chemical fertilizers, irrigation facilities, these were limited during that time. So thus the production in this sector was mainly dependent on monsoon. Farmer used to depend on monsoon instead of those irrigation facilities. So in times of good monsoon, the production was high, and in times of poor monsoon, the production obviously it will be low. So in addition to this, under the land revenue system as introduced by the British, there was a large scale exploitation of poor peasants at the hand of zamindars, that is landlords. Then peasants and cultivators were forced to pay a huge rent to the landlords. However, on the other hand, the landlords did nothing to improve the condition of agriculture. So, as I talked with the previous section, that peasants only have to pay the huge part of profit to the zamindars, and the landlords, that is zamindars, they used to do nothing to improve the condition. So, in other words, it can be said that there existed a gap between the owners of land and the actual cultivators of land. So, that is, the owners of land neither participated in the work of actual cultivation in the field, and they didn't do anything to improve the condition of the cultivators. So, this resulted in backwardness and stagnation in agriculture. In addition, this sector also suffered from lack of organized market. This implied that the farmers could sell their output only through the channel of middlemen. And the middlemen purchased the crops from the farmers at a low price and sold the same crops in the market at a very high price. So this was the condition where what used to happen during that time. So the middlemen purchased the crop from the farmers at a very low price, and they only sold the same crops in the market at a very high price. So this means that the farmers could not get the actual worth of for their crops, and thus such a system resulted in exploitation of the poor farmers. Now, to sum up, the agriculture sector, it suffered from various setbacks immediately at the time of independence. Thus, India required reforms in form of abolition of zamindari system, land reforms, reduction in inequality of land ownership, and upliftment of peasants. Then, infant industrial sector. Under the colonial rule, India could not develop a sound industrial base. Okay, British followed the deliberate policy of systematic deindustrialization. Under this policy, it allowed free export of Indian raw material to Britain and free imports of British products to India. Now, on the other hand, export of Indian handicraft faced heavy tariff rates. Such a policy had a dual impact on the handicraft. That while in the domestic market they faced stiff competition from the machine made products from Britain, on the other hand, in the foreign market the demand fell due to increased prices as a result of the high tariff rate. Thus, India's traditional handicraft sector suffered a huge setback. Furthermore, no attempt was ever made to improve the investment in modern industry. So here India again faced a lack of modern industry, and few industries such as textile mill, Tata Iron and Steel and a few paper and sugar mills were established in the country. Their progress remained marginal over here. The industrial sector suffered from lack of capital good industry. So this meant that there was little scope for further industrialization in the country, and thus while on the one hand the handicraft sector was on the verge of depletion and nothing could be done to review to the modern industries. The and the growth of industrial sector can be we can say that it was lacking behind, and industrial sector was also playing a limited role. Okay, so the public sector operated only in some part of the areas such as railways, we can also power generation, then development of port and mass communication. So also India were lacking behind of from all these things during the colonial time. Okay, so today we'll see only this much. The next part will continue for the next class. Thank you for watching my video.